Hi everybody, thanks for coming to the channel to check out my video. I'm Megan, the faithful fibromyalgia warrior. And I just want to talk a little bit just from the heart. I've realized in this past week, as I've been watching quite a few and really great videos by people that I happen to follow, that I'm subscribed to, that I respect and that I appreciate out in the YouTube world, including Casey Durango from Go Keto with Casey, Kelly Hogan with My Zero Carb Life, the videos that are put out by Dr. Anthony Chafee, the Plant-Free Doctor, Plant-Free MD, I believe is his handle, and of course Dr. Sarah Zaldivar, among many others. And one of the other ones I also really enjoy watching is Rebecca Farmer, now I think Fleischman, because she, I believe, just got married. And why do I mention this? Because I realized when I was trying to think about what to talk about with you guys, my first thought was, well, what would they say? What are they talking about? What approach should I make? And I felt like I needed to be like them, somehow. And I forgot briefly why I started making videos in the first place. And the reason is, I started making videos because my heart is to try to offer hope and possibly help to people who suffer with fibromyalgia or any kind of chronic pain, who struggle and suffer with anxiety, as I do, with depression, as I do, and also other particular medical issues. Now, I also happen to have been diagnosed with IBS, and I have a leaky gut. And I'm also coming out of recovery from bulimia for about 35 years. I struggled with it. I'm 50 now. If you haven't seen my last couple of videos, I turned 50 on August 29th. I feel great for being 50. I think, you know what, God has looked after me, and certainly eating carnivore has helped me physically, without a doubt, but I know that came from God. I was starting to focus so much on how can I, put out the carnivore diet, or the proper human diet, if you will. For as long as we've been humans on this planet, we have mostly consumed animals. And the only reason why we started eating plants would have been during times where animals became scarce. We figured out which plants didn't kill us right away so that we wouldn't starve to death. But I do believe that it's always been God's plan that we should have animal meats. Anything that used to swim, used to fly, or used to walk can be eaten. And crawl, perhaps, not that I would put it at the top of my list, but, if you're desperate and all you have around you is, say, snakes or things that crawl on the ground, well, kill those, eat their meat, assuming they're not poisonous, right? Like, I know, for example, blowfish is a delicacy, and it is so toxic that I think, from what I understand, the chefs themselves are at risk of getting poisoned just by handling the flesh. So I'm not going to suggest you eat something that is highly potentially poisonous, but other than that, if it crawled, if it walked, if it swam, or if it flew, eat it. That is a carnivore diet, right? Those who can handle perhaps a little bit of fruit, when it's in season, when it's local, like berries, have at it. If you choose to have some non-starchy vegetables, you don't have to have them, but if you choose to have some, go for it. I avoid all fruits and all vegetables because I can't handle them. That's me. That is me. And yes, I still enjoy black coffee, although I'm trying to cut down and eventually come off of it and swap fully to decaf. But you know what? I'm getting better with it, and I do enjoy sausages and lots of bacon and fatty ground beef. So 20% fat ground beef, as well as egg yolks. So I'm getting enough protein every day just by eating that. Salting to taste, drinking lots of water, other than my maybe 2 cups of regular black coffee. The rest is decaf throughout the day, which it's deep. Yes, I know there's trace amounts of caffeine, however, very minimal. And it still is refreshing because it is made with hot water. So it has water in it. Now, there are some of the purists who will drink only water, and it's got to be specifically, cleansed and distilled. I don't know if that's because there's an issue with water in the States or not. But I drink the water from our tap here in Colchester in England. We don't have hard water. There's no calcium or anything like that in the water. And it tastes fine. And yes, would it be optimal for me to find a way to get water that comes maybe out of a glass container and not plastic? Probably. But I also know that that's expensive. And so while some things might be more optimal, they're not practical, realistically, where we live. Our water is cleaned. So is it as clean as some of the structured waters or the energy waters you can get? Probably not. But it's not going to kill me either, I kept thinking, now, I wanted to share this because I felt like as soon as I learn how bad some stuff is, right, it makes me afraid of everything around me. Like, I know consuming plants is not good. They're full of anti-nutrients. Some of them can be very high in oxalates. The ones that are recommended for, say, a more ketogenic approach, which is, up to 20 grams of carbs a day, which could include a cup, basically a cup's worth of non-starchy vegetables per day, if you want it, if you can handle it, which is not a lot. But all of these non-starchy vegetables also happen to be vegetables that are extremely bad for IBS, like mushrooms, onions, peppers, sometimes tomatoes for people who can tolerate them, make their own little homemade salsa. I can't eat any of that because of my IBS. And then I find out, actually, it's probably full of all these other anti-nutrients and phytates and poisons. And it's like, oh my goodness, how do I proceed in the world now? What do I make for my family? Because I'm carnivore. My husband and neither my husband nor either of my 2 sons are. They eat relatively healthy. My son he's out walking every day. He takes the dogs out and then he goes out himself. My other son, who's working as a cook in Canada, works full days, long hours. So he's on his feet and he's moving. And whatever he happens to eat, at this point at 19, he's going to burn it off. Long term, all the bread and probably the pasta and the noodles and everything else he's living off of, probably not good for him. However, he is on his feet cooking in a very busy, very hot kitchen all day. So he's exercising. He's probably fine because, he's burning it off. And his brother, who's 22 in a few weeks, he'll have a bag of potato chips now and then. He enjoys a banana or apples as a piece of fruit. But he drinks a lot of water. He drinks some coffee. And other than that, whatever I happen to make, he'll eat it. So if it's like sausages with a little bit of salad with no dressing on the side, he'll have that. And iceberg lettuce, very low in oxalates. So I guess what really stuck out to me this week was, for one, I'm not the food police. I'm not. And as much as I wish I could say to my husband and both my sons, look, no, just don't eat any of that stuff. Even in moderation, just no. Cut it all out. Get rid of it all. Get rid of all the sugar and the crap. And just eat meat and egg yolks. Or full eggs if you like them. And you know what? For breakfast, my husband is much better. He gave up the oatmeal, he gave up the fruit, and he makes himself some little chipolatas or chipotles, whatever, chipolatas, basically little mini breakfast sausages. He makes those in the morning with a couple of over easy eggs and sometimes a bit of bacon. And he eats something similar at lunch. My son, he has a bowl of cereal, but then he'll make himself something. If there's leftovers in the fridge, leftover lamb chops, which doesn't happen often, we usually eat it all. But if we have any leftovers of sausages or whatever the night before, he'll heat that up and he'll eat it. Or he'll make himself a sandwich with lunch meats and butter and a bit of cheese. So carnivore-ish, other than the bread. But again, he's almost 22, and he's walking for like a good couple of hours every day with the dogs and then himself. So he's probably working it off. And at this point, it's probably not a big deal. But I realized even if it was, that's not for me to decide. I can't. They're adults, and I have to let them eat however they want to eat, as much as it might pain me to watch them eat stuff that I know is not going to be good for them. I was out the other day in town, just out running some errands, and I couldn't believe how many overweight and obese people I happened to go by. And it broke my heart. It broke my heart, because here I am knowing what I know about how cutting out carbs, 20 grams or less, or completely even, could radically improve so many people. But then I realized, you know what? I can just live my life by example and hope maybe someday they'll want to know more. And they'll want to take care of their health. And I realized it's kind of the same about being a Christian, because I'm a carnivore and I'm a Christian. And if people ask me, I'll say, oh yeah, no, I believe in God. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a disciple. And I hope that, maybe they are too. I hope that they're believers as well. But then what do I do if they don't want to respond to that? It's heartbreaking, because here I am knowing the truth about God and his promise for all of us if we decide to follow and obey, and that salvation is waiting. And also on this earth, how hard is it to go, wow, I might have an answer for you, right? And that's doing this, and that's going as meat-based as possible, eliminating as much other stuff as possible. Certainly the processed crap, even, the fruit stuff. And yet, I can't force it on people. I can't force it on anybody. They have to want it. And I wish that there were more people who wanted it, wanted to change, to improve their health, to get better, because it certainly helped me. I have never felt better health. Now, I still deal with chronic pain. The weather's changing. It's getting cooler. The barometric pressure is changing slightly, so I can feel that in my wrists. My arthritis flares just slightly, but not as bad as it once did. And To me, it's crazy how much has changed. Yeah, how much has changed. For the better. You guys, sorry, I'm saying a lot. This is unscripted. I just had it on my heart to want to share with you guys. I just hope what I've been able to learn has helped you somehow, or could help you, or someone you know. Meat and eggs, meat and egg yolks, water, some black coffee, salt to taste. It's that simple. It is. It's truly that simple. And like most people, I didn't start out going straight into carnivore. I found my way to keto. God led me there. He really did. And I did have, what was it? I think it was a MyFitnessPal app. And I was tracking macros in the beginning. And then I found it was becoming too much like tracking my food when I was bulimic. And I didn't know how to get out of that. You know, my antidepressants really made a huge helpful difference when I went on them in 2015. They really helped significantly with my depression. And it would only be sort of moderate depression sometimes. But my anxiety was never helped by the medication. Didn't make any difference. My anxiety was at an all-time high, which of course didn't help with my cortisol levels, didn't help with my adrenal glands being in overdrive, certainly did not help with my sense of peace and calmness, nor did it help me with my bulimia, nor did it help me with anything else in my life, because when you're anxious, you can't do anything else. You're stuck. And it didn't help that I wasn't walking close with God at this time either. I wasn't. I hadn't forgotten him fully. I hadn't fully turned my back on him, but between all the brain fog and the unexplainable weight gain, knowing that I probably had a thyroid issue, but my doctor, my GP wouldn't listen to me. And then it turned out in 2020 that yes, in fact, I had hypothyroidism. I had an underactive thyroid. In spite of eating what would have been considered healthy, you know, very little protein, a little bit of fish, although I hate fish. I would still make myself eat some. Lots of chicken breasts, you know, very low fat, skim milk. So all I was getting was the lactose and the sugars in dairy because all the fat was gone. Margarine, not butter, because, you know, butter was bad for you. No red meat, no bacon, none of that. So no good healthy fats in my diet whatsoever. Eating things like bran flakes for breakfast and oatmeal with, you know, cinnamon. No fruit, just oatmeal and cinnamon. Some whole wheat toast with peanut butter because that's got to be healthy. And yet my weight would creep up. My depression started to flare up. My anxiety, though, was skyrocketing. And I was, by the time I finally stopped and let myself find a solution and get guided towards keto, I tried paleo briefly. Didn't help. Made things feel worse. My IBS and my constant painful constipation was there all the time. I was having maybe one bowel movement every week or two. And it wasn't, I didn't know what else to do. That's where I felt stuck. I felt stuck. And so when I found keto and I started to follow it and I started to allow myself the freedom of enjoying some bacon. Trying eggs. Now, they didn't sit well with me, and it took me time to realize that that was because I couldn't tolerate the whites, and that was probably coming back to my lactose intolerance. And I swapped over. I started drinking almond milk instead. I didn't realize at the time that almond milk was so high in oxalates and anti-nutrients and phytates and everything else. But I knew I couldn't tolerate dairy, other than some butter. And as I started to eat more meat, and I allowed myself to have a craving for, I'm craving some ground beef. That sounds really good right now. So I had some, and I found my happy place. And I started to follow other people on YouTube. And then I started to get some different conflicting information. Well, actually, you should be doing organ meats. Well, actually, you don't need to, but you should supplement. Oh, you should be eating nose to tail. What is that? That sounds disgusting. Only eat beef or lamb. Oh, well, what if I like chicken wings? No, don't do it. Too many PUFAs and FUFAs and all these other things. And there were so many voices shouting in my head about what I should do and what I should not do. And I got sucked in a bit because I started to follow things simply because other people did it. Not because it was necessarily what sounded like a good idea, because I needed to, but because I felt like, well, if I don't, then I'm not part of the group. I'm not part of the carnivore keto space. I didn't know, I had to have a label, and I didn't know what to call myself, because I started out keto, and then I felt like carnivore was the way to go, but I would still occasionally put cream in my coffee, or I'd have whipped cream and enjoy a cappuccino because, hey, I'm having it with almond milk, I'm not having dairy, which I can't tolerate, everything's great, etc. But then people said, oh, well, that's not really carnivore. That's a proper human diet, that's more ketovore, not carnivore, even though I wasn't eating fruits or vegetables or anything else, other than essentially the meats, maybe a bit of lettuce with a smidge of dressing now and then. And I felt lost. I felt like, but I've got to put a label on myself, surely, because who else is gonna watch my videos if I don't give myself a label? And then I realized this week, you know what? No, I don't. This is me. I'm a Christian. I'm faithful. I love God. Looking forward to heaven one day. In the meantime, on this earth, for as long as I can, I plan to take care of the body God's given me. Treat it as the temple that it is. How am I going to do that? By eating the way He had always planned for us to eat. Eat animals and their products if you can tolerate them. Meaning what? Eat fish and fish eggs. Eat seafood. Eat poultry if you like it, and eat their eggs, or at least the yolks, because there's good cholesterol and good protein in the egg yolks. Egg whites, virtually no use whatsoever unless you simply like the taste of them. Then go for it, right? Eat the beef, all the different cuts. Go for it, right? Have it ground, have it minced. Eat the beef spare ribs. Eat the chuck roast and the ribeye and the sirloin and whatever other cuts exist. Try them. Eat it. Why not? Right? That also means if you can tolerate the cow's milk in the form of butter, because that's the fat part, virtually has no lactose in it, for frying food, for adding it onto stuff. If it's a lean cut of beef, add a bit of butter on top. Do that. Right? If you enjoy pork, and you have no issues, if you can tolerate it, and you don't seem to react to it in the form of, say, sausages or bacon, maybe pork belly, maybe the ribs. If you don't like the pork loin or the pork chops because they're too lean, that's fine. Don't eat them. But you can. And I just realized I'm going to eat what I'm eating. because it is meat, and therefore it has all the essential fatty acids and amino acids that my body does not make on its own. See, God had a great plan, right? He made the animals first. Well, no, he created this earth over however many thousands and millions of years, put the plants on it so they would thrive and grow, so that when he created the animals, they would have just the right foods for them to eat, right? And whether they be ruminants, like lamb and beef, who can eat grasses. And because they've got multiple stomachs, they can process it all and convert it into nice, lovely fat in themselves that becomes tasty for us. So God designed it that way. If you don't believe me, go ahead and read Genesis chapter 1 and go ahead and read Genesis chapter 9. He absolutely did. And in a particular order. And I forgot that, you know what, all of this in life, everything in this life, part of God's plan. Now, you may not believe in God like I do, and that's okay. Even if you believe that there's some other higher power, whatever that might be, that has planned things outside of our abilities. And I definitely believe that, because things exist and things happen for a reason, way outside of my control. Who am I? Who am I? I am just a regular person. I'm just a regular 50-year-old woman, but I'm also a Christian. I'm also a carnivore. I also have lost 80 pounds from 2 years ago. 80 pounds simply by changing my diet. And that's it. And I kept thinking to myself, well, what if I do more? What if I can figure out how to completely get rid of all my pain? And then that would be a miracle, and God would be glorified, and people will follow me for sure. And then I realized, wait a minute, you know what? Then it becomes about me finding as many people to follow my channel as possible. And that isn't why I started this. Not about me. Look at what God has done. He has allowed me to figure out what his plan was for me all along. His appropriate and proper diet for human beings. Animal meats and their products. Plants, maybe to avoid starvation. And you know what? If we were actually able to share with each other, there'd be more than enough animal meats and products for the entire world. But of course, we don't, right? And I mean, that's a whole other conversation. And I realized, you know what? I've lost 80 pounds. I'm 115. I was at my absolute heaviest, about 190, 195, which is around what I weighed when I was pregnant with my second son. That was how much I got to between the COVID lockdowns and all the takeaways and the stress and the anxieties of COVID, yes. However, even when I wasn't eating Indian, like a korma takeaway or kebabs or whatever else, everything I ate was adding to me carrying on and hanging on to the weight. And all that extra weight was putting immense pain, pressure on my joints through my arthritis, was causing my fibromyalgia pain to spark, like a electrical shortage. When you see a wire short out and it sparks a bit? Yeah, sparks of pain throughout my body. I know I'm using my hands a lot. I'm sorry I talk with my hands. That's just how it goes. And there was sparks of fiery pain everywhere, in spite of the gabapentin I take, in spite of the cocodamol to help with my prolapse disc, and the chronic back pain, that was there times 100. And I couldn't walk far. I could barely walk any distance. I had to have a crutch at all times, or a wheelchair, or support, and a neck pillow constantly. And I realized, wait a minute, there has been a miracle. Because I now get a bit achy. Like I said, when the weather changes, I get a bit achy. But I don't have to wear my arthritis gloves all the time. And I'm not like painting myself an ibuprofen pain relief gel because I'm so sore. And I'm not trying to find alternative medicines to take on top of my pain pills because my fibromyalgia and my back pain just are unmanageable. And I can actually put a proper sentence together. I can think through my life and my day because my brain fog is gone. And I still have pain. I still have fibromyalgia, and I still get pain if I overdo it. So the other day I felt great, right? So I started to hoover the living room floor, which is not a big space. It's pretty small. We have an awesome Dyson. So it didn't take a lot of effort to just push it along and get all the dog hairs up. And I felt fine. It took me 5, maybe 10 minutes tops. And I felt great. So I figured, yeah, I guess I'll get out the little quick mop, which is one of those things where you just put a wet pad on at the bottom. You sort of stick it in place and then, spot mop, throw out the wet pad when it's full. And I did that in the kitchen. And I felt not as great. And an hour later, I had a bit more of an ache to my back telling me, yeah, you shouldn't have done the kitchen floor as well. That was a bit too much. So I still have to be careful I don't overdo things. If you saw my last video, I showed you some very simple, modified exercises that I do to help tighten up my core and also ease back pain. Okay, because when you do it and you hold in all your abdominal muscles, you're also taking the pressure off your lower back, which is where my disc bulge is. And I do that every other day usually. But again, if I do too many, if I hold some of those positions for too long, or if I'm not in the right form, then I feel it. So I'm saying this to say, you know what? I've figured out ways to find some pain relief. Is it gone completely? No. Will it one day? I have no idea. It might not. But even if that happens, guess what? My pain medication actually has an effect, right? It's actually helpful. And overall, it's mostly a dull ache that I'm living with, not this chronic, sharp, agonizing pain that was there. And that's my miracle. And I don't need to follow anybody else's advice. Hey, if it works for them, if they want to do this priming and then fasting, that is fantastic. And I hope it works for the people who do it. I considered it. I seriously considered it. But then I realized, you know what? I've already been carnivore. I've already been keto and then carnivore-ish for 2 years. Carnivore purely for the last 2+ months. I don't need to learn my hunger signals because I've already figured that out. I'm not at the beginning of carnivore. I'm well into it. And I don't have to do those things because what I'm doing is working and I feel amazing. And I guess what I wanted to share with you guys is I'm realizing I just want to be me. This is just what I am doing. I don't take any more supplements of any kind. I did have low stomach acid when I first started into carnivore or meat-based keto, if you will. And I did take digestive enzymes for about a year. That was to help with the IBS symptoms. And because they had peppermint oil in them, they were amazing. And my gallbladder finally got the message and started to kick in more, and now I don't need them. Now I can eat meat and egg yolks. Occasionally, I have cheated and had a little bit of cheese here and there over the last week, not in the last day or so, but I can digest it a bit easier. And I find butter is not an issue either, because my gut is, if it's not fully healed, it is definitely healing well. But I came to realize I don't have to keep trying to be everybody else, because I'm not. I'm me. And I hope you guys feel that way as well, in that you're you, and you don't have to do what I'm doing at all. But if you're like me, and maybe you feel like you're just overwhelmed in your brain about, well, where do I start, and do I do it higher fat? Do I eat more protein? What do I do in this case? How do I start this? If you've decided to give this way of eating a try, I heard somebody say once, don't worry, don't increase your protein yet. Start by laying off the carbs. And actually that was Casey Durango at Go Keto with Casey. And I think although she's talking about it from a keto perspective, I think if you're trying to transition over to carnivore as well, start slowly. Professor Bart Kay would say the same thing. Don't just do it drastically like that. You've got to transition, okay? And what I would suggest, at least what helped me, was start by cutting down on your carbs. Cut out the processed stuff, okay? If I may make a suggestion, anything processed, cut it out, okay? Anything that's not a single ingredient, like real vegetables and fruit, cut it out. And I would cut that out instantly. And then I would gradually cut down on everything else. That's a carb. And by the way, fruits and vegetables have carbs in them. Yeah. So cut out the bread and the pasta and the rolls and the rice. Rice is bad as well. Cut it all out. Cut out your fruits if you can, or cut it down significantly. And then work your way up from there. You know, work your way up so that you're cutting down your carbs and not eating them, or limiting them to 20 grams total per day. And then I would say, you know, maybe keep your protein levels where they are, but maybe start adding fat. So start cooking with butter, or if you're making a lean cut of meat, like a lean cut of steak, eat it with some melted butter on top, because when you eat more fat, it'll satiate you, and fat doesn't seem to affect your insulin levels and your glucose levels. So those are good things. Protein will somewhat, and carbs will significantly. But then go from there, right? So I don't know. I hope that's helpful. That's what I did, how I started. And then I found, as I started to gradually increase my protein intake, I also gradually increased the fat of the protein. So instead of eating 5% fat beef, so super lean, extra lean beef, I started eating fattier meats. So I went from 5% to 10%, 15%, and then 20%. And I was eating between 23 and 25% at one time, which is probably ideal, but it's hard to come by. It's out of stock at the grocery store right now. So 20% you can usually find at any supermarket, in my experience. But work your way up. Give your gallbladder a chance to, you know, wake up and go, hey, wait a minute, there's fat in here. Holy smokes, what do I do? You know, because chances are, if you have one, it hasn't had to break down fat with the liver in a long time. And so it needs to be primed. But you got to do it gently, or you're going to feel real sick real quick. And that's not fun. Okay? But it will help. I'm sure it will. You just get rid of all the processed stuff and you'll probably start to feel better almost instantly, right? I hope this is helpful. I really, really do. Honestly, let me just say, again, it wasn't so much the fact that I ate meat that helped me work through my bulimia and find recovery. That was a big part. It was eating properly so that I could lose the weight and get rid of the brain fog from all the carbs. That's what helped me connect with God, and that is what helped me, absolutely without a doubt, without any question, that is what helped me to find my faith, to overcome my anxiety, and to absolutely get on the path to recovery for bulimia and food addictions. Doesn't mean I'm not cured. There is no cure. However, this is what's helped me find recovery. And I just hope it helps you guys. I'm not going to try to be anybody else. I don't want to be anybody else. The people I've mentioned are really great and they have some amazing content on their videos, okay? But that's not me. And so if you're hoping for a really great scientific explanation of things, yeah, I'm sorry, that's not going to be me. I took up to grade 9 science, which was a mandatory requirement, and after that, I was out. I was gone. There was too much math involved for me. So science is not my thing. I'm curious, and I love the information, and I love listening to that information. But if you want it, you're going to have to check out people like Professor Bart Kay, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, Professor Ben Bickman, Amber O'Hearn, George Eade, also doctors. You're going to have to check these guys out because they know their stuff absolutely. And same with Dr. Sarah Zaldivar. If you want the science behind why a meat-based diet is appropriate, check those guys out. Also, Dr. Ken Berry. He and his wife, Nisha, they each have a channel, but they do a lot of stuff together on his as well, answering questions like on a Monday night. And he's looking at the anthropological facts of what we ate as a species. And his videos are very helpful as well. Check those guys out. If you just want to hear from somebody who does tend to ramble, and I can see that I've done that here, I apologize, who tends to ramble, but is passionate and is faithful and is just simply trying to get out the message about what's helped me, then I hope you'll follow my videos. I hope you will like them and subscribe, and that we can help each other. You know, yes, in finding a healthy way to eat that can absolutely transform us physically and help us to, you know, hopefully reverse and maybe even cure some of our physical issues, mental issues as well, without a doubt, but also how it's helped me in my faith. And that's the key. But not the food police. You guys can obviously eat whatever you want to. But if you want to know what's helped me lose 80 pounds, hey, I'm happy to share all day, every day. But I see I've gone on for a while. I know it's been over a week since the last video. There's been just a lot racing through my mind. And so, yeah, sorry for the delay. And this one's a long one. So if you guys have watched all the way through to the end, good for you. Well done. Thank you so much. The next video, I promise, will not be this long. It won't, okay? But I hope this has somehow been helpful. I hope it's encouraging. I hope that you feel free to share anywhere you want with anybody that you think it might help, okay? But there is hope for pain relief. I'm not promising that it's going to get rid of your pain fully. I'm not a doctor or any kind of medical professional. But between my relationship with God and eating a carnivore diet, anything that swam, crawled, walked, or flew, I'll eat it. And their products like eggs and milk, in the form of butter for me anyways. But this is what's helped me. And it could help you. If you're like I was back in 2020, in pain, bloated, inflamed, uncomfortable, and filled with all kinds of mental health challenges, in my case, the depression was pretty well managed, but the anxiety was not. The bulimia was not. The food addiction was not. This helped me, and if it can help you, fantastic. And if you know somebody that you think this might help, please share. Okay? I'm not doing this to make money. That is not my goal. That is not what I want to do. I have no coaching business. I have none of that. If I can help somebody else who's struggling similarly to me, that's all I want to do. Because how selfish would it be if I kept it to myself, right? Anyways, guys, I promise this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching to the end. It means everything to me. Please, I hope you share this with everybody. And I'll see you guys in the next video. And hopefully it will be sooner than later and not as long in between like the last one. Thank you for everything, guys. It means everything that you like and support this video. If you haven't subscribed, I hope you do. It'd be great to have as much of a community as possible. Please continue to share with me your great comments and all your support. If you have any suggestions or questions, feel free to message me. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it all. Love you guys. See you in the next video. Bye for now.